Now we're recording. Please find your chat button on your screen. Type your question into the chat box, and we'll try our best to get to your question before we leave. We promise to end around noon or shortly thereafter. We started a little bit late today, so we'll probably go a little bit longer. But help me welcome Diane Finnestead. Diane has gone from insurance to music teacher to elementary school principal. Diane is currently a leading producer in life and health insurance nationwide for those under the age of 65 and those who are Medicare eligible. Diane is also an advocate for health reform through National Association of Health Underwriters and serves on the St. Louis board recruiting industry professionals who share the same passion for providing intelligent insurance options. Diane, welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to talk to you guys.
So you have been an author. Yeah, you've been an author in 3 of our anthologies. We got you hooked with Bright Spots, and we pulled you back with Living My Truth. It was a Ruth Bader Ginsburg tribute, and then we just recently launched Clarity Out of Chaos. A week ago today was when we launched that. So
Yes.
Thank you for being one of our frequent flyers.
It's been so much fun, Kathy. Thank you. I've really enjoyed doing this. It was something that I wanted to pursue. My family is a family of educators. I used to ask my mom, growing up, what kind of family are we? What's our family business? And my mom would say, our family business is education.
Oh, how fun.
So I come from 5 generations of educators, all the way back to when my great-great-grandmother lied about her age, lived in a Saudi in Nebraska, and she met and married her oldest student after she lied about her age. So she was 14 and he was 17. How scandalous. So, and then on my dad's side, in the San Fernando Valley, my great-great-grandmother on that side, she was the first kindergarten teacher in the state of California.
Oh, how awesome.
So, yes, so this long line of educators goes way back. My Aunt Diane was an elementary principal. Of course, I became an elementary principal for a while and then saw the light. And my brother is still a principal, a high school principal. And my sister is an elementary art teacher. My aunt was a curriculum coach for the basketball team down at University of Memphis. So the list goes on and on. One of my cousins taught in Saudi Arabia. My aunts also taught abroad and Czechoslovakia. And it's amazing to see that. Now, with that being said, of course, as educators, they're all wonderful writers. So I always felt, excuse me, I have an allergy problem here. I always felt less than in comparison to their abilities because their stories were so robust. Their stories were incredible. I mean, they were just jewelry, where you just go, they're diamonds shining when you would get together with conversation, and then they write them down and they just come to life again. And I always felt like, could I capture that? Do I possess the same talent? I really didn't know. And so during the pandemic, when I was spending time in South Carolina with my boyfriend, he encouraged me and he said, honey, if this is really something you would like to do, then go ahead, do it. Write something, just do it. It'll help others. He said, it's perfect for you to do this bright spots. You might be able to be somebody's bright spot. You might be able to share with them how to get outside of themselves and to really enjoy reading and that type of thing. So that's what I concentrated on in the bright spots, was literacy and getting involved in the literacy movement. And it was one where I didn't know that I could do it, but I'm so glad that I did. And I'm so glad that I took the time to just see if I could be part of that family tradition of education and writing and self-expression.
Have you always been one that, do you like keep a journal or write in a diary, or when you were a child, did you write in a diary?
It's interesting. I didn't really journal to write in a diary. I wrote songs. So my background in education is my first degree is in voice performance and opera. And I went through 3 years of that, and I added the music education piece because I would hear songs and I would be able to create songs, particularly for children. So when I went back to that, 10 years after I had taught my first year, I went back to teaching. This was after 6 years of being in the insurance industry. And that's, of course, when I met Beverly Berner. So when I was just doing, long-term care at that point, when I went back to insurance, I realized what I didn't know. And so I started studying about children and how they could really thrive with a multitude of the spectrum of disabilities. So children that had the individualized education plans. So as I did that, I realized that music was a way to communicate. Music was a way to write. So even in my childhood, writing songs, and then also in my 20s writing songs, and then again later in my 30s writing songs. So now I sometimes write songs with two of my clients who also love to
Oh,
write.
wow.
So yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's an outlet. People say, "Oh, Diane, you should publish." No, not yet. But maybe someday.
Start a neighborhood band or something, yeah. Do you
Yeah,
play?
I've done that before.
Yeah. So were there, as a child, were you an avid reader?
I was. However, my reading kind of got stilted when I was 14. I lost the sight of this eye, my left eye, and they think the best guess was that I actually had Rye syndrome. That's the best guess. That right now, if you were to look at it, and any ophthalmologist that has looked at it, or optometrist that's looked at it, has said there's so much scarring, there's no way to tell, and it never went into the right eye. So at that point, what happened was my time that I spent reading as a child was then spent learning operas and learning arias and really studying my craft, to the point that when I was in high school, I was studying on the collegiate level through UMSL. At that point with Dr. Mark Madsen, who's now passed away, but he was wonderful in saying, Diane, this is how you can channel your love of words, your love of literature, your love of the dramatics, your love of theater. And he was right. So I've always loved opera because of that. And it was nice to be able to have that transition when I lost the sight of my eye, because I just didn't have the stamina to read long,
Right.
long texts. That's why I love short stories. I can do that well.
I can do one chapter. Sure. Give me a chapter. So what inspires you, or what inspires you to go pick up your pen, or whether you use your keyboard or your pen? Is it
I
a
think
story
it's
that you
when
see or hear, or?
it's what's so strange is that what's really inspired me, you guys are gonna laugh. All those little signs that you see at like Hobby Lobby, and you go in and there are these wooden little signs, and like I have a wooden sign in my office. We're in my home office right now. Welcome. And it says, "Dream it, wish it, do it." These little signs that I just love them. And it just takes me away to another place. Or I think about times in my life that I might have been dreaming about something, or wishing about something, or acting upon it and doing it. And it's just such a positive. Or I might read scripture and I might feel like, oh wow, that when I read that as a child, it meant this. As a teenager, it meant this. Now it means this. And so it can kind of transport you to a different time and place in your life. You can see how much personal growth you've had, and you can also experience who you've experienced that part of your life with. Was it that person that was, your parent, your loved ones, your significant other? Who is it that's attached around that memory? And so when you start to develop that memory, that's what gets me running to the pen, either to write a song or to write a story.
Is there
So
something that you're currently working on that you can share?
I am currently working on some stuff. So, right now I did do some wonderful things that I was encouraged with. We have this great editor, Kay Eulis, that definitely gets her due with me. She's amazing. She can really encourage and pull it out of me.
Yeah.
She's just great. And she said, Diane, you really need to write about your memories of your aunts and your mother, and what makes a good teacher, what are the ingredients,
Mhm.
because we are all teachers, we're all called to be teachers. Some of us are given that title in their life, for your career, but we're all teachers, we're all going to teach someone. And what do we need to do in order to teach, and any topic? And there's this process that I really feel is fail proof, and it is I do, we do, you do. And I want to express that in a story of how simplistic that really is. You watch someone doing something, you think, gosh, that's so easy. They make it look so easy. But then when you do it together, that's when you're side by side. That's when you're able to ask the questions and say, how am I doing? What am I doing? And you kind of get the wind beneath your wings. And then when you just do it yourself, that third step, that's when you are flying. But you really don't learn it until you and teach it until you start the process from the beginning with someone else, and you as the person that does the I do.
That's a great way to describe the process of working with a writing coach.
Yes.
Somebody like Kay that, she pretty much throughout the process will give you your wings to fly. Yeah. So
Yeah.
we had a woman, I think she was out of the Houston area, an author a few years ago, who did a book, and I believe it was called My Grandmother's The Checkered Tablecloth was the name of the book. And she went back and recanted and wrote down stories that she heard while sitting as a child at her grandmother's kitchen table. And
wow.
it was her aunts and her uncles and her grandparents and her parents and her older siblings, and the conversations they would have and the lessons that she learned from that checkered tablecloth.
Oh, that's amazing.
And it was just fun reading the stories.
Oh, it is. I think the thing that has been most surprising with participating with this is the stories that other people start to share with me as I'm sharing my story with them, and my joy of being able to be a part of this with the collection of authors and the talent that is in every book. And sincerely, Kathy, I don't know how you find these people and how they flock to you, but I love your light.
It's on sign and hovers over my house. Yeah.
I mean, it's just amazing. So what has happened, I was talking with one of my friends who happens to be a retired general with the Army. And I was sharing with him one of my stories, and he shared with me one of his. And that's the exchange that I'm talking about, that I wouldn't have had the depth of conversations with my clients, with my friends, with my family, with my neighbors, had I not been vulnerable and putting out my story and sharing joy about it.
There was a study in the last 18 months. It's been during the pandemic at Stanford University, and they talk about how when we share a story, our brain produces oxytocin, and oxytocin is the feel-good bonding chemical in our brain. So as we share a story, we automatically start to create that connection. And I think anybody that's experienced the last 18 months, which is all of us, a lot of what I hear is people miss that connection. And
yes.
And by sharing your stories, it allows you to, even with the stranger in the grocery store, about some headline on the magazine that happens to be on the rack beside you. Sharing that connection, you may never see that person again, but by sharing that story, you've created a bond, and you've increased the oxytocin, which makes you feel good.
Oh, absolutely. Mix that with a little bit of dopamine and dash it with whatever
Yeah,
amounts of love you want. Now, I like that cocktail.
exactly, exactly.
So I was going to share with you, here is a story about Stanford University, and it's one of my very favorites. And it was a short story that I read. And the way it goes, and I'll make it short because we wouldn't even have that information that you just gave without Stanford University, right? Well, it was their son that went to Harvard, and he died while he was there. And they traveled all the way from California to Harvard, and they wanted to meet with the dean. And they got there early in the morning, plain clothes, overalls for this gentleman, and just a plain, sack dress for his wife. And they wanted to talk to the dean of the school, and he was not available. He was not taking anyone. The secretary said, "You're just going to have to wait." They waited all day long, and he came out at the end of the day. He said, "Oh, you're still here." And they said, "Yes, we're still here. We'd really like to do something special for our son. He loved going to school here." So the dean said, "Come on in." And they sat down, and what happened was, they asked him, "How much is it to have a cornerstone on a building?" He said, "Oh, that's very expensive." And so this was, years and years ago, about 100 years ago. And he said, "It's going to be about $10,000. And he looked at his wife, and she said, "Well, how much for a building?" He said, "That'll be about $30,000, $50,000. And he looked at his wife, and he looked back at him, and he said, "How much for an entire university?" And he said, "Oh, I don't know. You wouldn't be able to afford that." He said, "Come on, honey, we're going back home." They went back home, and they opened Stanford University.
Wow.
In honor of their son who went to Harvard. True story.
And was
So,
the son's name Stanford?
yeah, those were the Stanfords that were at Harvard
Wow.
to see what they could do to honor their son. So instead, they gave him an entire university. That's why they call it the Harvard in the West. So
And that's an example of when you cannot tell a book by its cover, right?
no, not at all. I mean, it made me think of when I was in the car business for about 5 years after I got out of my first year of teaching to recover. And they said, "Oh, you're going to get a free car." I said, "Fabulous." And this was right before I went into to insurance. And so I was there one day, and no one wanted to take, they called it up, go help this person. And at
Yeah.
Saturn, there's no haggle, no hassle. For all those people that are millennials, they don't know that because it didn't exist in their lifetime. And so I would smile and be happy and help people because I didn't have to haggle or hassle. And so this gentleman came in with the overalls, one undone on the side, and an old pickup truck, and no one wanted to help him. And I said, "Oh, I'll help you." I said, "Do you need anything?" He goes, "No, I just looking at cars and just kicking tires." I said, "Kick as many as you want. We can drive as many as you want. And I'm hungry. I kind of need to go through a drive-through." And I said, "So if you want to go in 15 minutes and go through a drive-through, let's go get some lunch." And he said, "Okay." So we went, we had lunch, we came back. He said, "Well, this is a nice car that you chose to drive. I think I'll take it." And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" I go, "It's like $15,000. He goes, "I got that in my pocket. Where do we go to pay it?" And he did. He had the $15,000 cash in his pocket. So, I mean, that story about the Stanfords always makes me think of him.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever
Well, I
happened?
know the one thing that I love about you, Diane, is that you have such a positive outlook on life, and you're always able to find the good in somebody else. Every
Thank
story
you.
you've shared today, you've been sharing the good in everybody. And I think people want that now. People are just so disconnected. They're looking for someone to bring that out of them. And you definitely have that personality.
Oh,
So
thank you.
if you were to offer some wisdom or some sage advice to someone aspiring to be a writer, or even if someone's aspiring, to be an opera singer.
Don't do it. I'm kidding. Please do it so I can listen.
Yeah. As to what kind of direction would you send them in?
I would tell them that, there's a theme kind of in my writing. of imagine the possibilities and thinking about possibilities. Like with the first chapter in Bright Spots was about imagining the possibilities if all of us read more books, got involved in literacy, were passionate about that, knew how to create a little free library in your front yard, those types of things. And then the second story was all about when I was a teacher and I had a young student that would imitate me, and he happened to be Bosnian. And he taught everything that I taught him for the whole year. He taught these little old ladies in his neighborhood who all became citizens and later business owners. Thank God for Ruth Bader Ginsburg that allowed those laws to be passed and formulated so that that could happen, and that St. Louis could be the second Bosnia, a location outside of Europe. And then this last book talking about the stories that I'd heard in my life that allowed me to get through a multitude of changes coming at you, during the pandemic. What I would say to everyone, the theme is that the possibilities are there. You have to choose what you're looking at. You get to choose. Whatever you put in is going to come out of your mouth, is going to come resonating through your body, through your person, through your energy. So you have to choose the food for your mind. Just like you choose the food for your body, you have to choose the food and the fruit for your mind to grow. So I'll leave you a story that I read last night.
Yes.
And it was about Walmart. It was about Sam Walton. And he took one of his vice presidents to a city where they were going to expand. And it was right at the beginning when Walmart was the inception, the vision, not yet achieved what it is today, but the vision of it was there. So they went to this small town and they went to this general store, and this vice president, he said, you go this way, I'll go this way. They got back together and he looked at Sam Walton. He said, well, what did you see? And Sam said, I want to know what you saw. And he said, a mess. It's an absolute mess. Nothing is organized. You can't find anything. It's dirty. There's no one here. There's just not enough people to help. And he said, And he said, well, what did you see? He said, did you see the pantyhose? The pantyhose aisle was so well organized. I'm calling that manufacturer this week. And the vice president was like, I didn't see the pantyhose aisle. Well, if you go to Walmart today, you're going to see a pantyhose aisle that is displayed very nicely. I mean, it was because of that visit. And then he said to him, did you happen to see that there were more makeup selections for the diversity of any woman or any man who needs makeup? He said, it was amazing, the cultures that are represented. He said, we have 4 aisles, they have 12. Again, this vice president wasn't getting it. And Sam Walton looks at him, he said, you have to look for what they're doing well and then do that even better. He said, you don't look for what they're doing worse and then try and build it up. You find what they're doing well and you do that even better. And he said, and then you stand out. And so that's how this man has built this company. I think it is astounding. So if you do concentrate on the good and you do allow yourself to have those possibilities in your life, well, I'm here to tell you, amazing things do happen. Who knew that I would be able to say, I know you? Who knew I would be able to just laugh and say, I can't believe I've contributed to 3 #1 international bestsellers. I can't believe it. That's unbelievable.
That's right. You are an international best-selling author.
I love it.
I think Diane, if you don't already have one, you need a podcast.
Oh, thank you, Kathy.
I would
lips to God's ears.
Yeah, I would definitely tune into that. It's just being with you the last half hour has been quite uplifting for my day. I greatly appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. That makes my day.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm hugging my heart just because of that.
Ear hugs.
Yes.
Yeah. So I do want to thank everybody for being with us today. Our next Lunch and Learn with Inspiring Authors is coming up on November 4th, which is really only a week away. And that day we'll be interviewing Raylene Murray. She is a life coach, and she's going to be talking about how to clarify your mission and your message. I get that a lot from authors trying to figure out what is the message in their books. And we'll be talking with her next week. And then I will be out of town on the 11th, so we will not be having our usual second Thursday get together, but so it'll be 1st and 4th in November. Thank you everybody again for joining us today. There will be a follow-up email that'll have Diane's contact information in it in case you want to reach out to her for a conversation, a story, or insurance, either one. I'm sure she'd be more than happy to have that phone call with you.
And since we're going into November so quickly and we're leaving this scary month of October, I want to say to all of you, happy Thanksgiving. And I am thankful for your contributions. And I'm so thankful for all the other chapters that have uplifted me and just fed my soul with good food. So thank you so much.
I can't wait to read your next book.
Oh, thank you so much. I can't wait for you to publish it.
Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.